What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the EOS Phoenix channel. Today is Saturday, March the 2nd, 8:50 in the morning here in Phoenix. I hope everybody's having a fabulous Saturday. Thought I'd come to you actually in the office today with a story that I thought was not covered as much within the crypto space or even within EOS, and it's the recent blog from Larry Sanger. For those that don't know, Larry is actually one of the original founders of Wikipedia, and I believe he is now on the Everpedia team, which is a project being built on EOS, which its goal is to form essentially a decentralized Wikipedia or encyclopedia. And so the reason why I wanted to bring this up today is it stemmed from the recent news we're hearing about Facebook's exploration of a new coin of some kind. I think right now they're marketing this more as a way to get introduced to or introduce their consumers to cryptocurrencies, and in fact it's being touted more as a stable token rather than a platform token, but we know that those things can evolve. And so I thought this blog from Larry was quite relevant in explaining some of the issues we have right now with social media and some of his ideas on how we can break through some of those issues and develop a truly decentralized platform to facilitate many of these new decentralized projects. And then I also want to discuss briefly some of the challenges with the space that we're in terms of, expecting someone like a Facebook to develop what we would, I guess, characterize as a decentralized platform. What are some of the issues they could run into? Because everybody's going around now just already assuming that someone like Facebook can do this, but I think it's a lot more challenging than many are recognizing. Part of that is, for example, we don't even know, well, first of all, just to back up, we don't even know what the goal of this coin is. And so I think there's a couple different directions this could go into, and I kind of want to share my thoughts on it and see what you guys think. One is we could see Facebook looking at providing more of a financial network hub for the new digital money that is being developed as we speak today. All the plumbing's going in. You look at projects like EOS and Litecoin and Bitcoin and Ethereum, and I don't think there's going to be one winner. I think there'll be several competing groups, and the more the better, certainly. So you could see Facebook not so much competing for a slice of that pie, but being more of the hub, if you will, for facilitating this transition to a new digital economy. And that's probably the more simplest of the three, I would say. And it's something that right now there's a huge demand for, because we're seeing the likes of the fiat on-ramps being very limited. I mean, you have projects like Coinbase, which is used quite extensively here in the United States, but you have the likes of Kraken, but your average Joe or your average Jane or Granny isn't as familiar with those sites or platforms as something like Facebook. So on the one hand, while Facebook has a lot of challenges in terms of data privacy and breaches, it does have the advantage of having a huge amount of users on its platform. And by developing this financial network hub for this new digital money transition, they stem to be in a very powerful position to basically take on the likes of maybe even a Coinbase. And when you compare the number of users on a Facebook, the number of potential customers, if cryptocurrencies was to really take on this huge transition that we're all expecting cryptocurrencies to be, you look at something like Coinbase, which has millions of users, and you compare it to a really a platform that could have a billion, billions of users who are already online, right? And you create a fiat on-ramp directly into Facebook. That is a huge pie that they have. That's a huge advantage that they have. Everybody looks at Coinbase and thinks they're huge, but people fail to recognize that the numbers that we're talking about with a Coinbase is still very small. When you compare that to something like a Facebook. So that's one potential road that we could see this evolve to. The other one that we're looking at is the embedment of social capital for participation in the Facebook ecosystem itself. And so this is probably the more traditional concept that maybe people are thinking Facebook would eventually head into. And that is, rather than Facebook maybe focusing more on being the facilitator of this network hub I talked about for new money, you could see them more focus on their traditional space and enhancing it to be more in line with the movements we're seeing within the crypto space. And that is actually the financialization of all activity on their platform. So whenever somebody likes something or posts something or hosts an event, right, or maybe even shares more information about who they are, that action or that activity or that engagement it has value. And so in the past, we haven't seen someone like Facebook reward users for that. But, moving forward, we can definitely see that occur. And so that's a possibility here. So that's option 2, or possibility number 2, is having someone like Facebook enhance their existing platform and go in the space of more rewarding their users for the activity that they're doing on their network. I think, from the traditional crypto space perspective, people might still say that they haven't addressed the data privacy issues on their platform. They haven't addressed many of the issues, but regardless of where we stand on that, people still need to realize, people within the crypto space still need to realize that outside of this little family we have, outside of our little community, many people still don't quite understand the power that even a Facebook has. Not everybody still understands that. Facebook still commands a huge market in terms of users and people engaged in platforms. A lot of people still love it. I don't think so much the younger populations. I think some people have grown out of Facebook, and even people like myself don't even use Facebook anymore. But you still have a good percentage of them that do. So whenever you throw money or wherever you show that, if a company like Facebook was to basically make a statement that says they are now willing to pay or compensate their users for using their platform, you're going to see some people gravitate towards that, and some people, support it or get excited about it and get excited about the coin. And so you could see that the Facebook coin could represent that more as a stable token where the users don't have to worry about the market volatility of a coin. And it's really Facebook that is giving them, some kind of a peg to the US dollar. And so that has its advantages and disadvantages, but that's a discussion for another day. So again, pathway number 2 is embedded social capital for participation in the ecosystem. Pathway number 3 we could potentially see is what I think is even more interesting, which is the premium services and tools for entrepreneurs and newer users to cryptos added to the Facebook system. So today we have, many different projects: Ethereum, we have EOS, we have Litecoin, we have Neo, we have Cardano. We have a lot of projects, right, that are building these platforms for people to create DACs, to do a number of different things. But I don't think those systems or features have propagated themselves into the mainstream. So while the progress has been great, and it's acknowledged within the technical communities and certainly the libertarian communities and others who have been in the space for many years, it hasn't really hit the mainstream to understand what this is all, how this can all be useful. And so, again, with Facebook's large number of users and their capital that they can deploy and resources they can deploy, you can see them actually, I would think, make an attempt to try to go after the likes of maybe even I guess a data storage platform or solution. If you think about EOS, it is a generalized computing architecture or a generalized computing platform that offers the services you would need to basically launch these decentralized organizations or projects and financialize them. You could see though on the front end something like Facebook being more of the interface for mainstream users, okay, who want to have a way to financialize their own services and use different computing resources to do that, but they may not care so much about the how, or they may not care about all the details, I guess. It's kind of like when we get in our car, we don't study all the intricacies of how the engine works and how the tire pressure and the braking systems and the electrical systems and the control systems. We don't study all that stuff. All we mainly focus on is the fact that when we get in the car, we either crank the engine with our key or we push a button and the car starts. And to the extent that's really all we need to know. And so I think sometimes we get so caught up in understanding all the technicalities of our projects that we maybe don't even issue anything out. And in terms of block one, or I don't really know what the reasons are for that. But I think what my whole thought process here is that the average person doesn't care so much that it's perfect from a decentralized standpoint. It doesn't have to be purely decentralized or purely perfect in the beginning. What they more care about maybe is the easy, couple clicks to create their own entrepreneurship projects. They basically need the tools, right? And they make it easy, and it's across a huge network of users in which they can get support from their friends or their family or their loved ones. So I think there is a good possibility here that you could actually see that. So that would be, I think, pathway 3. Or you could see the combination of all three of those. So you could see Facebook looking at, becoming the new hub for digital money. You could see them also incentivize users to stay on that platform by embedding social capital for participation on the ecosystem that they've made. And you could see the premium services and tools for entrepreneurs and business owners who already use Facebook. I mean, let's not forget that a lot of users, a lot of local businesses use Facebook for ads and for business leads and for events and for a lot of other things. And so now adding this additional layer for blockchain-based solutions to encourage even more usage on their network only stems to make sense. And there's a lot of different micro ideas that I didn't get into and I won't get into in this video that I think Facebook will be looking at. So, it on the one hand, it's a little bit it is interesting because it does give the nod to suggest that crypto is here to stay. But on the other hand, it's like one of my friends would say locally here, the "we will take it from here," quote. And what I think I mean by that in this context is, for a long time you've seen, a company like Block.one who created all the software for EOS. You've seen Ethereum, you've seen Bitcoin do a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of lessons learned and helping this space evolve. But what you haven't seen is that mainstream drop. You haven't seen that mainstream DAPP drop. You haven't seen something that people are really magnetized and attracted to. And a lot of people have been left wondering, is this outside? A lot of people outside the crypto space. I'm not talking about the folks like us who study this maybe on a weekly basis or on a daily basis or on an hourly basis. I'm talking about the average person that has, 2 kids, has a wife or husband, and, they're busy with their normal day-to-day stuff. They don't follow the space as much. And so for a lot of them, they look at the mainstream articles, which has already written off Bitcoin as a failure, and they see something like maybe the JP Morgan coin or the this Facebook coin as a way to do it, quote, the right way, or do it with people who are more reputable. And those are all air quotes. They're not what I think, but I think it's something we need to, be realistic about how people just think about things. So with that, I wanted to get into Larry Sanger's blog, and then I'm going to return to some of the challenges I see with actually Facebook pulling this off, and why I think that, while it's awesome to see Facebook do these things, there are some questions that I think might make it a little bit challenging, at least in the interim. So Larry goes on to say that the problem about social media is that it is centralized. Centralization empowers massive corporations and governments to steal our privacy and restrict our speech and autonomy. So what he's advocating here is, neutrality on the usage of these things. But obviously, while we have seen that, is what he says. There's nothing that exists today that's a common dominant standard. And so blockchain technology is a perfect use case for this, but he's saying it's not strictly necessary. We would have common protocols that enable us to provide feeds, for example, right? To either issue feeds of our content or obtain feeds on our terms and not on the likes of Facebook or Twitter's or any others. So that's, in a nutshell, I think one of the challenges that he's showing here. And he goes on to say, if you want to make short public posts to the greatest number of people, you have to go to Twitter, enriching them and letting them monetize your content and your privacy. And so I think what he's alluding to here, and kind of reading between the lines, a lot of people have kind of hypothesized what Block One or other projects are working on in terms of a blockchain-based decentralized application. And, as more time goes on, and I think a lot of people study these things and try to think through how that would work or how that transition could play out. You have the likes of someone like Facebook that has billions of users. One of the things that stems out is the fact that there is billions of users, and it's not going to be easy to move those users from a Twitter or Facebook to a new social media platform. And the reasoning behind that is the penalties that are involved. If you have your friends or your family on one of these platforms and you want to move away from that platform, it's not so easy to do. You can't just do it, overnight, all right? There's penalties involved. For one, a lot of the events that are on those sites are not on your site. So you could be an island of one or an island of a few. Just, thinking out loud here, when we look at the space in Phoenix, for example, for EOS holders or people who even know about this stuff, you're talking about a handful of people. And so would you rather talk to and reach out to a handful of people, or would you rather reach out and talk to millions of people? That's the magnitude and difference that we're talking about here. And so it really doesn't work that way in terms of transitioning, I believe. And we have to rethink how maybe we transition the system. And so he goes on to say that it would be nice to do that. He considers it a dream. But how do we make it happen? So after all, the problem about replacing the giant abusive social media companies is that you can't replace existing technology without making something so much more awesome that everyone will rush to try it. And the media giants have zillions of the best programmers in the world. So he goes on to hypothesize, how what he calls the little guys could compete with them. And so his sketch is summarized in 5 parts. And he then goes on to say the killer feature, which will bring down the giants, is number 4. So we'll pay attention to that. And I want to know what you guys think as we're going through this. By the way, if you like this content, if you enjoy this kind of podcast format more than my other videos, I'd like to know feedback on that. I've been trying to, find the right balance between these. And obviously, we're in still a winter market, so I really appreciate everybody's support. So if you like it, hit the like button, consider subscribing. So let's go on to his first point, the open data standards. Create open data standards and protocols, or probably just adopt the best of already existing ones for the feeds of posts and threads and other data structures that Twitter, Facebook, etc. uses. I'm not the first to have thought about this. The W3C has worked on the problem. It'd be like RSS, but for various kinds of social media post types. So basically open standards for everybody, and this would allow, I think, interoperability between platforms is the way I'm reading this. His next proposal item is 2, the publishing storage platforms. So this is the creation of reliable ways for people to publish, store, and encrypt and keep totally secret if they want their post. Such platforms would allow users to control exactly who has access to what content they would like to broadcast to the world and in what form. And they would not have to ask permission from anyone. It would not be censorable. Blockchain companies using IPFS, and in particular Everpedia, could help here and show the way. But any website could publish feeds. So what I'm reading here is that essentially you have open standards for interoperability between the different social media platforms themselves. And built with that stack, you have a storage platform that allows users to own their data. And so I think one of the challenges with this is, while this sounds in theory great, and this is just me speaking now, while it sounds in theory great, I do have to wonder, and this is a question for you guys, and I'd love to hear your answer to this. Would you be willing to pay for your own data storage? So if you wait, or would the average person be willing to pay for their data storage? Keeping in mind that for the past 10, 20 years, many people have had these quote-unquote free services. And if we go to something like a publishing storage platform, is that something we think people would be willing to pay for? Because someone will have to pay for it. It's not exactly a free service. So I'd love to know what you guys think about that. But I think it's noteworthy, and for someone like myself, I'd be willing to pay for that just to have my own privacy. 3, the feed readers. Just as the RSS standards spawn lots of reader and aggregator software, so there should be similar feed readers for the various data standards described, and the publishers described. While the publishers might have built-in readers, as the social media giants all do, the publishing and reading feature sets need to be kept independent if you want a completely decentralized system. So what I'm gathering there is that, again, you have readers that can go around and collect data that's based on the preferences from those publishers. But the two are actually separate in a sense of maintaining independence. And most of the publishers do have the built-in readers today, but he's saying that obviously the readers and the the readers and the publishers need to be kind of isolated from each other. And number 4, and this is again the giant. So the social media browser plugins. This one was actually the most interesting to me. So he says, here's the killer feature. Create at least one, could be many competing, browser plugins that enable you to select feeds and then display them alongside a user's Twitter, Facebook, etc. This could be the adaptation of Grease Monkey. In other words, once this feature were available, you could tell your friends, I'm not on Twitter, but if you want to see my tweet-like posts appear in your Twitter feed, then simply install this plugin and input my feed address. You'll see my posts pop up as if they were on Twitter, but they're not. And we could do this because you can control how any website appears to you from your own browser. It's totally legal, and it's actually a really good idea. In this way, while you might never look at Twitter or Facebook, you can stay in contact with your friends who are still there, but on your own terms. I think that is such an awesome idea, and I actually suspect they're designing this. That's my thought. So I think, contrary to what most people think about the killer DAPP being something that moons and Lambos and does all these crazy things, or is a token, or what we might be actually seeing is a media browser plugin system for these large social media platforms that allows any EOSIO user or actually other competing systems as well to offer their users data storage and allow them to take back ownership of their data moving forward, at least, and still keep their friends and family and anybody else who's on these platforms engaged. So I think that is genius. I'm surprised this hasn't received more coverage from people. Number 5, he goes on to say the social media feed exporters and APIs. So talks about creating easy-to-use software that enables people to publish their Twitter, Facebook, Mastodon, Diaspora, Gab, Minds, etc. feeds via the open data standards. The big social media companies already have APIs, and some of the smaller companies and open projects have standards. But he goes on to say, again, there's no common open data standard that everyone uses. This needs to change. If you could publish your Twitter data in terms of such a standard, that would be awesome. Then you could tell your friends, I'm not on Twitter, but I know I am on Twitter, but I know you are not. You don't have to miss out on my tweets. Just use a tweet reader of your choice and subscribe to my username. I think that's pretty cool, because what I've seen in the past is, again, I'm not a huge fan of these sites that basically steal all the privacy and usage of me looking at someone else's content, and then I have to log in. But maybe I really want to see their content, and maybe this is a way for me to bypass that issue. So I think he's hit both sides of the coin here. One is on the content creator side, and one is also on the consumer of the content side, right? Which is item 5. So he goes on to say this 1-2 punch here is a combination of points 1 and 4. First, we get behind decentralized common social media standards and protocols, and then we use those standards when building plugins that let our friends who are still using Facebook and Twitter see posts that we put on sites like Steemit, Minds, Gab, etc. Not to mention coming Everpedia network DApps. So, wow, that is kind of a hint, I think, right? What do you guys think? The exciting thing about this plan is that no critical mass seems to be needed in order to get people to install the Envision plugin. All you need is one friend whose short posts you want to see in your Twitter feed, and you might install a plugin that lets you do that. As more and more people do this, there should be a snowball effect. Thus, even a relatively small amount of adoption should create a movement towards decentralization, and then the days of centralized media will be numbered. We'll look back on the early days of Facebook and Twitter and YouTube as we now do the robber barons. And then he goes on to say we can take a look at a later iteration of Everpedia itself as an example. Right now, there is one centralized encyclopedia, Wikipedia. With the Everpedia network, there will be a protocol that will enable people from all over the world to participate in a much broader project. I'd like to see the various competitors of social media giants settle on a common standard and otherwise join forces on these sorts of projects. If they do, it will happen in the days of privacy, stealing, centralized control. Big Brother social media will soon be behind us. We will return to the superior and individually empowering spirit of the original internet. So, I think it's really cool stuff. If you guys like this post, definitely check out larrysinger.org. It was one of his recent posts here in February. And again, that's why I'm surprised it actually didn't get more coverage. So I'd really recommend you guys take a look at that. And just to lay out some of the challenges I see with Facebook that maybe I didn't go over, but I'll just quickly mention here as we're running out of time. I try to keep these, videos to about 30 minutes. So let me know, guys, if you like the longer sessions, or if you want them shorter, or if you prefer the outdoors, or you like these little podcasts you can take along with you. So some of the challenges are the reputation of Facebook. We've seen a lot of data breaches, and they're not known for being very strong in blockchain technology, I would say, although I have heard rumors that they've hired upwards of around 50 new blockchain developers, and they're very, aggressive in their timelines and deploying this new project or product they have. 2, with high capitalization of any coin developed natively. And what I mean by that is not derived from other projects. There could be a risk of Facebook changing the rules of some kind, which could result in issues with rewarding people for their engagement on the platform. So I guess my main question is, sure, it's great that Facebook is creating a coin, stable coin, whatever it is. How do the users know that those terms and conditions will not change? I don't know how you're able to provide that assurance on a centralized controlled system. And what types of things are you giving up for, deciding to engage in that system? Should be the questions that users may have. Well, do I think that many users will ask those questions? Probably not, but it's still worth at least, mentioning here. 3 is regulators in the US and other countries still haven't thus far favored tokens that reward or pay out users with dividends or any kind of thing like that. So that's probably why we're seeing Facebook emphasize that this is just a stable token. Although even with a stable token, I'm not quite sure even that's been been viewed very favorably. So by seeing a project like Facebook announce basically a date for this and go forward with it, I'm wondering what that says about the regulatory market. Might seem to suggest things will fall out into Q2 of 2019 would be my suspicion, because a large company like Facebook that is not typically in the blockchain space is so confident about announcing a date for their product, doesn't just do that automatically, probably without having conversations with the regulators. So EOS Phoenix will keep you updated on that, but that just got my spidey sense thinking a little bit there about why they would be so confident about that, and what are some of the other details that we'll see come out about this coin. 4 is, how will Facebook show they are serious about decentralizing the decision-making process and guard consumers or users' privacy? And I think that's not absolutely needed for this project, especially if it's only a financial hub project, or if it's even just a simple rewards engagement project. This may not even though it's a question for us in the crypto community and we're concerned about it, the average person probably doesn't care, just to be quite honest with you. So it could be a separate question for them going down the road, of course, in terms of then facing competing systems. So I'm not sure we'll see much progress there. And moreover, this we have seen some news articles, you can Google this, where California has actually asked Facebook and other social media companies to begin rewarding people as a basic income for the engagement on their platform. So you might actually see regulators clapping or applauding for this stuff, even though that seems really odd to me, where this is all going and how everything is digitized and I guess tracked is where we're going. So it just gives a whole different element to the I guess the marriage between the social media giants and government, state governments in particular. I don't know why they would have any say on that per se. I mean, if it's a free market thing or if it's a private, we'd rather see a private free market move towards that, not something that is state mandated. But that's what we've seen. So I don't know what to say further about that, but it's just something to think about. 5 is Facebook's current model relies on the users as the product itself. And so if the idea is to go to this new system, I'm wondering how that changes things. Is it still sustainable for them to go about things as they've been doing, or maybe by adding these features, does it change maybe their entire business model? So that's my take, guys, that I wanted to share today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you have questions or you want to contribute anything, feel free to hit that like button and consider subscribing. And until next time, guys, I hope you guys enjoy your weekend, and ciao, peace.